Welcome to the Queer Bus, everybody. I'm Nan,
And I'm Andy.
and on today's episode, we're going to be discussing the death of Leelah Alcorn, the transgender teen who lived right here in Ohio, who committed suicide last week as a result of feeling isolated in being transgender. We are going to forego our review of the queer-friendly venue this week so that we can devote this whole episode to Leelah and to this topic. So as you guys know, when we introduced ourselves last week, you know that Andy is trans. So the first thing I want to talk about with you, Andy, is your experience when you transitioned. Leelah seemed to have felt very, very isolated, was facing some adversity. Did you experience anything like that when you transitioned?
When I made the decision to transition, I was about somewhere between 33 and 34-ish. So I didn't really have a lot of adversity. As an adult, I had laid the foundation of a good, solid network of friends. And so I've had a lot of people in my corner already. So when I began talking about it, it wasn't necessarily a surprise to anybody, but at the same time, those folks that I am friends with, yourself included, I already knew that you guys were going to support me. So I feel very fortunate in that way. But I think that's, there's a difference between being older and making the decision to transition and being a teenager. I think the outcome may have been different had I been, younger when I made that decision.
Right. Now, as far as anybody who is getting ready to transition or is thinking, discovering that they're transgender, what kind of support and encouragement is important from family and friends as they are starting on that?
I think family, when it comes to that, family needs to be supportive no matter what. Leave all your conceptions of what you thought your child was going to be, leave them behind. Because your child is going to be unique, and no matter what that ends up looking like, you want to support anything that your child does, because kids are super impressionable, super sensitive, and if you as a parent show them that you don't support it, there's not going to be much hope for them outside of the family circle. They're going to think that, well, my parents feel this way, so everybody must feel this way.
Right.
And it ends up being kind of a defeatist attitude that gets formed. So the parents are there to lay the groundwork of acceptance and love, and let your kids know that you love them no matter what. That's really important. And as far as like friend support, make friends with people who are non-judgmental, and just surround yourself with love.
Yeah, that's really important. And for me personally, I'm a parent, and my children are very small. But it's important as a parent to make sure your kids know that they're supported and that they can be themselves in their own home. If they want to go against my kids again are smaller, so but having a conversation about any time they're going to do something that's different from what's the norm among their friends or classmates, having a conversation and saying, okay, these could be the ramifications, people could treat you differently in this way, and all the reactions might not be positive, but if you're sure that this is who you are and this is what you want to do, and you're prepared, for that, and I'm here to help prepare you as much as possible, then let's do it. And just making sure, we can't let these kids think that there's nowhere for them to turn. We can't let them feel that they are alone and that they can't be who they are at the very least in their own home. So I think that that's a really important thing as a parent to remember. Um, Now, is there any specific advice that you received along the way or that you would like to give as far as somebody who is transitioning, something that was especially helpful to you?
Um, some, I don't know if it's advice necessarily, but well, yeah. I mean, reach out, reach out to anybody that you can. Make your transition conversational. I talked about it a lot, kind of ad nauseum it sometimes, but I think that's super important because as I was getting educated about what this was going to look like for my life, I just kind of dragged everybody along with me and made sure that everybody knew that I'm still going to be me, but the outside is now going to match the way I've always felt my entire life. Mm-hmm. And I think bringing people along for your journey is really important because as you get educated, so do the people that you're bringing with you, and it makes it also their transition in a way, because they're not going to be blindsided by anything. They're going to see every change, and they're going to experience everything right alongside you. And I think that's equally as important as your own personal transition.
Definitely, yeah, and coming from the perspective as a friend of someone who's transgendered, go on the journey with them, and definitely remember that honestly, Andy is not. It's the same kid that I grew up with. The same. Is the same person. The impact on your life, on the surface, it seems like it's a major change, and it is a major change for the person who's transitioning. But the impact on your life as somebody who loves that person is actually, for me, it was pretty minimal. It was, changing pronouns and getting used to seeing him with facial hair, and what I mean. But he's the same person. He's my Andy, and I think knowing that this is the child that you raised, the person you grew up with, the person that you work beside, they're still that same person, and remembering that is important as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And another thing that we've talked about in preparation for this interview for this episode is that, the fact that Leelah was able to identify who she was at such a young age, it does show that we've made progress, in a lot since we were kids. When we
Absolutely.
were, when Leaps we were, definitely, when we were teenagers, transgender isn't a word that people knew.
Yeah, I definitely did not have a word for the way I felt. I just knew that at age 3, I knew I was a boy, and that's all there was to it. So, yeah, it took until I moved down here for me to realize that, transgender is a real thing, mm-hmm. and it's a possibility. And once I found that out, I was off and running.
Right. So, and it definitely does show how far we've come. That at 14, Leelah heard the word transgender, and that at that time, she said in her suicide note that she, cried tears of joy, knowing that was a real thing, that was something, and it seemed like it opened up some possibilities for her. So there's been progress made, but again, here we sit with the loss of this young life and so many others like her. So it's just proof that we still have a long way to go in terms of making sure these kids feel like it's going to get better. And that was something that Leelah again said in her note, that people say it's going to get better and it won't, and we can't afford to have any other kids feel that it's not going to get better.
Right, because it does get better. I feel like I'm living proof of that.
Exactly. This is somebody who is trans, who is living an amazing, meaningful, fun life, and it's been really hard preparing for this episode and having our friendship and thinking, God, this could have been my friend. I could have only had 17 years in this earth with him. So it's really close to home, and we're just so sad here about this. We wanted to give you some statistics. The National Center for Transgender Equality did a study in 2011. It found that 41% of the responding transgender people had attempted suicide. That is so much higher than the national average, which is around 1.6 to 2%. We have so much work to do, and we can't afford to let any other queer or transgender kids feel that they don't have anywhere to turn. We wanted to let you guys know that we are happy to be here for anybody who has questions or is questioning. You can comment to us in the comment section. You can also email us at thequeerbus@gmail.com, and we're happy to give you any resources available to us. We also wanted to give you the web address www.transohio.org. It's a great resource for anybody who is starting out on the transition journey. They have legal and medical resources for you. And we're also in the description below, we're going to put the phone number for the Trevor Project, which provides crisis intervention and suicide prevention for queer and trans, anybody on the queer spectrum, youth. So we're going to provide that for you as well. So we just want to say, Leelah, you'll be missed, and we're mourning the loss of you, but we heard your voice, and we're impacted by it, and we want to move forward and know that your death means something, and that we're working, and all of our friends and allies are working to try to make things better.
And it does get better.
It does. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you all next week on the Queer Bus.